And we're going to start. President Biden's State of the Union address last night was 1 hour and 13 minutes long.
Out of all that time, it was an 18-second clip that has gotten the most reaction online.
Some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal.
All right, to look at that and to kind of think about what is going on with that, Constance tweeted, "I've never heard boos in a State of the Union address, all of which were justified." Gary on the other side writes, "A State of the Union address isn't a sporting event. Decorum dictates no yelling, boos, and heckling, yet Republicans show no class as they tried to turn the speech into a spectator sport. Shame on them." And then Wendy went down right there in the middle, writing, "State of the Union speech doesn't matter who you vote for. When the president is addressing the State of the Union and people heckle, they should not be there." Now, they aren't the only ones, of course, noticing a difference this year. Republican Senator John Thune from South Dakota has been in Congress for more than 2 decades.
The reaction in the chamber was probably pretty predictable. Democrats were very boisterous in their support, and Republicans, of course, not so much. And I think that, again, the tone of State of the Union speeches, at least in my, the modern era in which we live politically, there is more, I would say, activity in the chamber probably than there used to be. But, I think that's probably characterizes a little bit of the change in our politics. I mean, people are a lot more, they get out there a lot more outspoken, and I think the State of the Union speeches are perhaps a good example of that.
The boos were because President Biden said some Republicans, want to sunset Medicare, meaning they would put an expiration date on the program. Republican lawmakers said in interviews after the speech, that's just not true. Listen again how President Biden responded.
Contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal.
Okay, today I did exactly that. I went to the White House website, clicked Contact Us, and asked for a copy. A spokesperson sent back a CNN article which linked me to this: Florida Senator Rick Scott's 12-point plan to rescue America. It says we should sunset all federal legislation in 5 years. If a law is worth keeping, Congress can pass it again, meaning Medicare, healthcare reform, and so many other social programs would go away unless Congress votes to keep them around. I want to be really clear here. This is just the idea of one senator. In fact, the Republican Study Committee put out budget suggestions for 2023 with an entire section dedicated to the title of Saving Medicare Through Reform. So as a whole, Republicans want to tweak Medicare, not sunset it. In the end, though, President Biden was correct. There are some party members who floated the idea. Here's how Biden summed up the whole exchange.
If anyone tries to cut Social Security, which apparently no one's going to do, and if anyone tries to cut Medicare, I'll stop them. I'll veto it. And look, I'm not going to allow them to be taken away. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. But apparently it's not going to be a problem. Next month, when I offer my fiscal plan, I ask my Republican friends to lay down their plan as well. I really mean it. Let's sit down together and discuss our mutual plans together. Let's do that.
So that was the most talked about 18 seconds of the speech, but what about the other 72 minutes and the Republican response? Casey Decker fact checks.
Here you can see the sources we went to. One of the first things President Biden did in his speech was take credit for economic growth during his presidency, citing booming jobs numbers.
After we've created, with the help of many people in this room, 12 million new jobs, more jobs created in 2 years than any president's created in 4 years, because of you all.
The first half of that claim is true. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there were 143 million jobs when Biden took office. Now, 2 years later, there are 155 million. But the second half of the claim is false. The BLS has data going back to 1939, and we found that between 1996 and 2000, when Bill Clinton was president, more than 12.4 million jobs were added. That's more than the 12.1 million added in Biden's 2 years. Now, those years span Clinton's first and second terms in office, so the growth wasn't just in one term, but it was over one 4-year span. Next, Biden also claimed he'd taken huge steps towards balancing the budget.
My administration has cut the deficit by more than $1.7 trillion.
That's true. According to the Federal Reserve, the national deficit before Biden took office was more than $3.1 trillion. By 2022, that number had dropped below $1.4 trillion. No other 2-year span saw a decrease that large since the Fed began reporting that data in 1901. Still, the claim needs context. The deficit ballooned above $3 trillion in 2020 because of massive spending programs the government launched to respond to the pandemic. So a lot of the deficit shrinking is a result of those programs expiring, not necessarily any specific action taken by Biden. Okay, moving on to the Republican response from Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
100,000 Americans a year are now killed from drug overdoses, largely from fentanyl.
We can verify that's true. The CDC's most recent data puts drug overdose deaths at 101,000 over the last 12 months. Roughly 70,000 of those deaths are from synthetic opioids, like fentanyl. It's a figure President Biden himself highlighted in the State of the Union, calling for more drug detection equipment at the border. But Sanders also claimed the drugs came across the southern border. But where the fatal drugs are coming from simply isn't tracked. With your State of the Union Verify, I'm Casey Decker.